Hi, it's been a while.
And I just wanted to give a brief intro, or at least I'll try and keep this brief, of what's happened so far. So, last year, I started my YouTube journey, and it's a bit cringy that I call it YouTube journey. Yeah, I uploaded 2 videos, and the plan was to keep uploading more and initially focus on the 4 main pillars of what goes into helping a small business. So, you can watch the previous 2 videos, I'll link that in the description. And for the last couple of months, here's what's happened. So in Jan, I visited my friends in France along with my wife, and we were over there celebrating her birthday. So that entire month, along with the January slump, really hit me. February was my birthday month. Along with that, I was also working on a couple of pitches for different small businesses, and some of them actually reached the final stage. And after that, they just decided to ghost me. I just hope that not a lot of people have to go through it. It's quite annoying, honestly, and quite childish, to be honest. March was special. I was invited back to the University of Surrey. That's where I got my master's degree from. I was invited to come and talk to students about how I go around promoting my little side business of helping out other business coaches and other small businesses in general. And right after that, in April, I got the reading bug. I started reading these 2 books, and they were amazing reads. The first one was Neuromancer. If you're a sci-fi reader, you will be aware of this title. In fact, the Matrix movies were heavily inspired by Neuromancer. Honestly, I found it really difficult for the first 200 pages. But for the last 100 pages, I was really hooked because everything started to make sense and started to click. So I highly recommend reading that book, but it does require constant effort. The next book I picked up right after that was 1984 by George Orwell. I might be late to this party, but I genuinely enjoyed reading that one because of how amazingly well George Orwell manages to convey the story in such simple language. I won't tell you what happens in the book, but if you haven't read it, it is a very easy read. Highly recommend reading it, especially in this time and age today. It draws a lot of parallels in our current political scenario. That was April, and right after that in May, I took a holiday with my wife and her family as well, and we were in India visiting my family, and that was lovely because we got a chance to also do a little bit of an Indian celebration for the guests that couldn't attend our wedding last year over here in the UK. Now, when I say a little celebration, in Indian terms, there is no such thing as little. Around 500 people were invited, and there were close to around 400 people that actually turned up for the thing. I didn't know 80% of them, but that is how Indian weddings go because India is such a tight-knit society. And yeah, they all came by, wished us all the best for the future life, and it was special. It was lovely seeing everyone. So that's what I've been up to so far. And what led me to create this video is because right after we got back, we decided to basically give our car in for a good wash. It needed a proper cleanup, both from the outside and proper detailing on the inside. And that led me to a car cleaning specialist. And previously in the past, we've been to them and they had done a fantastic job. So this time as well, I decided to reach out to them again. I'm going to link their name. I'm also going to add a little screenshot over here on the page, or somewhere here or here, either way. They did such a fantastic job. His name is Bartek. It took them around 2 or 3 hours to get the entire work done. And when I got back to collect it, he asked me how much did I pay last time that I was there. Now last year I remember paying 95, I think. And I said, yeah, I honestly don't remember the exact amount, but it was definitely in the 90s. And he said, since you're a repeat customer, I'll do it for 80. Thank you so much for coming to us again. And even though he just gave me a discount of around £10 or so, but it felt like this is a genuinely hard-working bloke over here. And he cares about his customers. And I wanted to give back. So I got back home, left him a review on Google, and I messaged him saying, if you need marketing help, reach out to me. And to my luck, he instantly responded saying that he's planning on including a couple of more additional services apart from the current services that he offers, and he'd love to discuss this. And we started talking about things based on what he needs help on. Now, Bartek already is doing a lot of really cool things. He has his head in the right place. He understands what marketing needs to be. These were all the things that I was going to talk about in my third video initially. That's what I'm going to talk about here. I'm going to explain the idea of how to make a memorable brand, and I'll break this down into simple steps, and I'll also try and add a couple of infographics on the screen and see how I can explain this idea. But over the coming months, the idea is to dive deeper into this topic. So I'm going to take a quick sip of water, and I'll explain what I'm talking about. It really was a big sip. Yes, the idea of creating a memorable brand. I'm looking at my notes over here, and a brand is basically an identity. And your identity needs to be something that people remember and recall when the moment is right. So first off, for any identity is to have your logo sorted. Logo is basically just an image of you. A lot of people, as you expand, will not associate your business to just you, but to your company's identity, and that's why logo is important. If you decide to run a solo business forever, cool. You can be the face of the company for as long as you want. But if you're looking to expand, if you're looking to grow your team, that's where the importance of a logo comes in. So you can start with something simple, which associates with what you're trying to do. And then eventually, as time allows you, you can expand on that idea. Second thing is obviously have a digital presence. This can be in the form of landing page, so it can literally just be a one-page website or a little more detailed website with a few different tabs. But if you want to just start, you can use a simple one-pager. I highly recommend using Card. I am going to also link them in the description and also add a screenshot over here. Yeah, they have some amazing landing pages over there that you can easily customize, and they're all one-page websites. And right after that, the third thing is having a story. Now, having a story is crucial because this is what will help you break through the barrier of monotony, and that's what your story is essentially. It doesn't have to be clever, it just needs to be clear, and that's all your people are looking for. Second thing is to have a very clear understanding of your target audience. So trying to very clearly define who they are that you're trying to target, that you're trying to solve a problem for, or that you're trying to service, knowing exactly who these people are, and along with that, when these people are ready to buy. So in Bartek's case, what I liked about him was he knew exactly when people are obviously looking to clean their car, and in simple terms, he knew when off-season or on-season is for him. So for example, he said when the sun is shining, anytime there is a long weekend coming, he will be busy. But if it coincides with half term for the kids, the people are already out of the country, so no one's coming in lining up to clean their cars. And because he knew this timing really well, he was very clear in when he wanted to try and experiment with ads or try and push more services out there on social groups or on Facebook communities. And that really piqued my interest because very few businesses out there know that buying trigger of when people will come and approach them. So he knew that very clearly and when that buying trigger will happen for them. Now, be careful. For some businesses, there is no clear buying trigger, but you can aim for a buying emotion. So for example, for some brands, you can look to entice a certain emotion while engaging with that brand, and that becomes your perceived brand trigger. Anytime you try and focus on that with your products, you will always have a buying trigger associated with it. That's a little bit of an advanced concept, but just keep that in mind. If you're not doing a service and if you have a product, you can also look at emotions as buying triggers. Once you have that figured out, then comes the little tricky bit. which is the building a personality. Now, this basically adds to your brand story. So let me break it this way. When you're trying to build a personality, there are two facets to this. The first one is the idea of building a personal brand. This has become really important these days as a lot of people spend a copious amount of time online. And when you spend so much time online, you're trying to associate people with the product or service they offer and vice versa. And because of that, it has become increasingly important that you are known in your industry. The more people know you and the kind of problem you solve, it is easier for you to have conversations with your prospects when they approach you. And the second idea is, if you are an expanding business, that is, if you're a team of more than 2 or 3 people, then comes the idea of what is your company known for? What's the company image or your business image that you're trying to nurture and build? How do people know your small business or your growing business based on the competitors? How do they position you in their minds? And that's where your brand personality needs to outshine the others. And once you've built your company's voice and your company's personality, it makes your life simpler. Now, there are a couple of ways to do this with your company's content. So I try to break this down into 3 major pillars. The first pillar is working on thought leadership content. This is basically where you're trying to talk about industry norms and what's going on in your business environment, which positions you as someone that knows your stuff. So I like to call this content that solidifies your positioning. Second is the kind of content that shares frameworks. And with this, you're trying to tell people that you know your stuff. You're not just someone that's talking about ideas, but you're also talking about implementation. This helps you amplify and reach out to more prospects out there. And finally, once you've aced those 2, it's all about your insights on your journey, sharing your personal growth of how you've decided to navigate this journey, how you've decided to get to this point of building a business, all the mistakes you've made, all the things you've learned, what should people look out for, because this is where a good level of connection will happen for you. And I call this grounding yourself. In fact, talking about content, I'm going to try and make the next video on what these different types of content can look like. Because at the end of the day, if you want to succeed in your content marketing, this is exactly the kind of framework that you'll have to rinse and repeat. And finally, after you've done all of this, the idea is to track the right metrics. When you create all of this content and you wrap it around your brand story, your brand's positioning, your brand's identity, you should also know what you want to measure. More specifically, are your current customers and future prospects engaging with what you're putting out there? It's a long game that you're playing with brand positioning. And that's what you're trying to do over here. If you see a particular type of content that's doing really well, obviously that's going to signal to do more of that. But I'd highly recommend you try and stick to this cadence of trying different angles rather than just sticking to one topic that you think works really well. Because otherwise you're going to lose out on the other points. So track who's looking at your content, track who these people are, and finally also track on how these people are talking about you when you are not present. So communities that you can't manage. If someone mentions you on Reddit, you have no control over that. People are just talking about a brand. These are places where you need to look out for and actually gauge how your brand is performing, because that tells you about unaided awareness. You did not prompt that, you did not ask them a question, they just went out there and they were talking about you. It can be positive or negative, and it can be sometimes really difficult, but keep an eye out for that. That's where some social listening tools are also really helpful. So keep an eye out for Reddit, keep an eye out for community forums, keep an eye out for places like Trustpilot, places like where people review your business or services, or even podcasts. These things are really difficult to find, but you might be surprised. When you're actively trying to listen for these things, they do show up. And That's what this whole video is all about. If you try and do all these different things in the correct format, and soon you shall have a memorable brand. And while you're at it, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also share this with any of your other friends or connections that are starting a small business or need any help. I'm always happy to hear them out or just offer any advice. See you soon. Bye.